What happens when one of Hollywood's most outspoken, unpredictable stars walks onto a daytime talk show expecting a thoughtful conversation, but instead finds herself in a tense exchange that slowly escalates into a moment so uncomfortable, so real, that it leaves the entire studio in stunned silence? Make sure to subscribe to Talk Show Fallout and like and comment for more talk show coverage. The audience is already clapping as Megan Fox walks out onto the stage, dressed sharply, composed, giving a small, polite smile as she waves. There's a mix of excitement and curiosity in the room. She doesn't do daytime TV often, and when she does, people expect honesty. She takes her seat at the table, exchanging greetings with the hosts. Whoopi Goldberg gives her a warm but measured smile, leaning slightly forward. "Welcome, Megan," Whoopi says, calm and steady. "It's good to have you here." "Thanks for having me," Megan replies, crossing her legs, settling into her chair. Her tone is polite but reserved. Joy Behar chimes in almost immediately. "You don't come on shows like this a lot, do you?" Megan smiles slightly. "Not really. I try to avoid situations where things get taken out of context." There's a small ripple of laughter from the audience, but also a bit of tension in that statement. The hosts glance at each other for a split second. Sunny Hostin leans in. "That's interesting you say that, because a lot of people feel like you've been more vocal lately, especially about how Hollywood treats women." Megan nods. "Yeah, because I've experienced it firsthand. And I think for a long time, I just stayed quiet to survive." The audience reacts with a soft murmur, some nodding, some clapping lightly. Whoopi responds, her tone thoughtful but firm. "But let me ask you this. When you say Hollywood, do you mean the industry itself, or do you mean specific people you've worked with?" Megan pauses for a second. "I mean both. It's systemic, but it's also very personal when you're the one dealing with it." Joy jumps in again. "But you've also benefited from that system, right? I mean, you became a star in that same Hollywood." The audience reaction shifts. A few oohs can be heard. Megan keeps her composure, but her expression tightens slightly. "That doesn't mean the experience was positive. You can succeed in something and still be mistreated by it." Whoopi nods slowly, but her tone sharpens just a bit. "Sure, but there's also personal responsibility in how you navigate those situations." Megan tilts her head slightly. "Personal responsibility for being objectified?" The audience reacts louder now, a mix of applause and murmurs. Whoopi raises a hand slightly. "No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying," Joy interrupts, leaning forward. "But you did lean into that image at the time, didn't you? I mean, the roles, the interviews." Megan lets out a small breath, almost like she expected this. "That's what I'm talking about. There's this assumption that I had full control over how I was presented." Sunny tries to mediate. "I think what Megan is saying is," Megan continues, her voice still calm but more direct now, "at that time in my career, I didn't have the power people think I had. I was very young. I was being told what to say, how to dress, how to behave." The audience quiets down, listening closely now. Whoopi looks at her carefully. "But you're not that person anymore." Megan nods. "Exactly. That's why I'm speaking now." There's a brief pause. You can feel the shift in the room. The conversation is no longer light. It's getting personal. Joy leans back slightly, but her expression is skeptical. "I just think sometimes when celebrities talk about being controlled, regular people watching at home might feel like, well, you still had opportunities most people don't." A few audience members clap, while others stay silent. Megan looks directly at Joy. "Opportunity doesn't cancel out exploitation." That line lands heavily. The audience reacts again, louder this time. Whoopi steps in, her voice calm but authoritative. "All right, let's not talk over each other." But the tension is clearly building now. Sunny tries again to balance things. "There's a broader conversation here about how young women are treated in the industry." Whoopi cuts in slightly. "And that's valid. But we also have to be careful not to rewrite history in a way that removes accountability from everyone involved." Megan's posture stiffens just a bit. "I'm not rewriting anything. I'm finally telling the truth about what it felt like to be in those situations." The audience is now fully engaged. You can hear people reacting under their breath. Joy leans forward again. "But do you understand why some people might see it differently?" Megan's tone becomes more pointed. "Do you understand why it's frustrating to have your experience questioned while you're explaining it?" A louder reaction from the audience, some applause, some tension. Whoopi raises her hand again, trying to keep control. "Nobody's questioning your experience. We're having a conversation about perspective." Megan shakes her head slightly. It doesn't feel like a conversation. It feels like I'm being told how I should interpret my own life. That line changes the energy completely. There's a noticeable silence in the studio now, the kind that only happens when things get real on live TV. Whoopi leans back slightly, studying Megan. That's not the intention. Megan responds quietly but firmly. Intent and impact aren't always the same. The audience reacts again, softer this time, but more intense. Sunny looks between them, clearly aware of how tense things have become. I think this is actually an important moment because... Joy interrupts again, shaking her head slightly. I just don't think it's fair to paint everything as negative when you clearly had success. Megan exhales, this time more visibly. Why is it so hard to accept that both things can exist at the same time? The room goes quiet again. Whoopi leans forward, her tone now more serious. Because when you're on a platform like this, words matter. And the way things are framed matters. Megan looks directly at her. Exactly. That's why I'm choosing my words carefully. There's a brief pause, a long one. You can feel the tension sitting between them now, not explosive yet, but building. The audience senses it too. Whoopi nods slowly, but her expression is firm. All right, then let's keep going. And you can tell, this conversation is far from over. There's a slight shift in the atmosphere as the conversation continues. The kind where everyone at the table knows things have gotten serious, but no one is backing down. Whoopi leans forward again, resting her hands on the table. Let me ask you something directly, she says, her voice calm but more pointed now. When you talk about being mistreated, do you feel like there's accountability on your side at all? Or is it entirely on the system and the people around you? The question lands heavy. Megan doesn't answer immediately. She takes a breath, her eyes briefly dropping to the table before coming back up. Accountability for what, exactly? Joy jumps in before Whoopi can respond. For the choices you made. The roles you accepted, the image you projected. Megan turns slightly toward her, her tone still controlled but clearly firmer now. You're assuming those were fully my choices. Joy raises her eyebrows. You're saying they weren't. Megan gives a small, almost disbelieving smile. I'm saying it's more complicated than that. And I think people who haven't been in that position underestimate how little control you actually have early in your career. A few audience members clap, not loud, but enough to show support. Sunny nods. That's something we've heard from a lot of young actors, especially women. Whoopi glances at Sunny briefly, then back at Megan. But at some point, you gain that control. And when you do, how do you reconcile continuing in that system? Megan answers quickly this time. By surviving it long enough to get to a place where I can speak about it. The audience reacts again, a mix of agreement and curiosity. Joy shakes her head slightly. But do you see how that might sound contradictory to people? You're saying the system is harmful, but you stayed in it. Megan leans forward just a little, her voice tightening. People stay in harmful systems all the time because they don't have a choice. That line gets a stronger reaction, applause, a few yes murmurs from the audience. Whoopi raises her hand again, trying to keep things balanced. Okay, but... Megan continues, not talking over her, but clearly not backing off either. And when you finally do have a voice, suddenly everyone wants to dissect how you got there instead of listening to what you're saying. There's a noticeable pause. Whoopi studies her for a second. Or, people want to understand the full picture. Megan tilts her head slightly. It feels like skepticism, not curiosity. Sunny tries to step in again, her tone calm. I think what's happening here is a difference in perspective. Megan is speaking from personal experience. Joy cuts in again, a bit more animated now. And we're speaking from the perspective of people watching this who might feel like, look, you were famous, you were successful, you were celebrated. Megan looks directly at her. And that cancels out everything else? Joy hesitates for a split second. No, but it changes how people perceive it. Megan nods slowly, but her expression is more serious now. Exactly. Perception. That's the problem. The audience reacts again, quieter this time, but attentive. Whoopi leans back slightly, then forward again, as if choosing her next words carefully. Let me be clear, nobody here is dismissing your experience. But when you come on a show like this and make broad statements about an entire industry, people are going to ask questions. Megan responds immediately. And I'm answering them. Whoopi's tone sharpens just a little. But you're also pushing back on the questions themselves. Megan doesn't hesitate. Because some of them aren't really questions. They're assumptions. A louder reaction from the audience now, some clapping, some tension. Joy leans forward again, clearly not satisfied. So what would you prefer? That nobody challenges you. Megan's eyes narrow slightly, not aggressively, but with clear frustration. No, I'd prefer to not be told that my experience needs to fit into a version that makes other people more comfortable. That line hits harder than anything so far. The audience responds immediately, a mix of applause and audible reactions. Whoopi raises her voice slightly over the reaction. All right, let's bring it down. But the energy has already shifted again. Sunny looks at Megan, then at Whoopi. I think this is actually an example of why these conversations are difficult. Because when someone shares something personal, Whoopi interrupts, her tone still controlled but firmer now. And when you share it publicly, it becomes part of a larger discussion. Megan nods, but her expression doesn't soften. I understand that. But there's a difference between discussion and dismissal. Joy exhales, shaking her head slightly. I don't think anyone is dismissing you. Megan looks at her directly. It feels like you are. There's a brief silence. That kind of silence where no one immediately jumps in. The audience feels it too. You can hear a few whispers, a few shifting movements. Whoopi steps in again, her tone now more authoritative. Okay, let's reset for a second. But Megan doesn't lean back. She stays forward, engaged. Whoopi continues, we're not here to attack you. We're here to have a conversation. Megan responds quietly, but firmly. Then it needs to feel like one. Another pause. Sunny nods slowly, trying to ease things. Maybe we can shift slightly. Talk about what's changed for you now versus then. Megan exhales, just slightly, as if considering whether to go along with that shift. What's changed is that I don't stay quiet anymore. The audience claps, louder this time. Joy gives a small, tight smile. Clearly, there's a hint of tension in that remark, and the audience picks up on it. Megan notices it too. Was that supposed to be a jab? Joy raises her hand slightly. No, I'm just saying, you're speaking your mind now. Megan holds her gaze for a second longer than comfortable. Yeah, and it seems like that's making people uncomfortable. Whoopi steps in quickly. It's not about discomfort. It's about clarity. Megan turns back toward Whoopi. Clarity for who? That question hangs in the air. Whoopi doesn't answer immediately this time. Instead, she leans back slightly, looking at Megan with a more serious expression than before. The audience is completely quiet now. Sunny glances between them, clearly aware that things are getting closer to a breaking point. Joy shifts in her seat, but doesn't speak. And for the first time since the conversation started, it feels like the tension isn't just building. It's about to tip into something bigger. The silence stretches just a second too long. The kind that makes everyone aware they're watching something that's no longer just a typical daytime discussion. Whoopi finally leans forward again, her voice lower now, more deliberate. Clarity for the audience. For the people watching who are trying to understand what you're saying. Megan doesn't nod this time. She just looks at her. I think they understand me just fine. A few audience members clap, louder than before. Joy lets out a small breath, almost a quiet laugh, but there's tension behind it. See that right there? Megan turns to her quickly. What about it? Joy gestures slightly with her hand. That tone. It comes off like anyone who questions you just doesn't get it. Megan's expression tightens. Or maybe they don't. A stronger reaction from the audience. A mix of applause and a few surprised murmurs. Whoopi steps in immediately. All right. But Megan continues, still controlled, not raising her voice, but clearly more direct now. I'm not here to be agreed with by everyone. But I am here to not have my experiences reframed in a way that minimizes them. Sunny nods slowly. And I think that's fair, Joy interrupts again, her tone more pointed now. But nobody's minimizing you. We're asking you to take a broader view. Megan turns back to her. A broader view that excludes what I actually went through. Joy shakes her head. No, a broader view that includes context. Megan leans back slightly, crossing her arms now, a subtle shift but noticeable. Context that makes it easier to question me. The audience reacts again, not as loud but more intense. Whoopi watches both of them carefully, then speaks. Megan, let me ask you something honestly. Do you think there's any room here for disagreement without it being seen as an attack? Megan doesn't answer right away. She looks down briefly, then back up. There's room for disagreement. But not when it starts to feel like I have to defend the validity of my own experience. That lands hard. The audience claps again, a little louder, more unified this time. Joy leans forward, clearly frustrated now. But that's what happens when you make strong claims on a public platform. People are going to push back. Megan nods once. And I'm pushing back too. Joy responds quickly. But you're framing that pushback as unfair. Megan's voice sharpens just slightly. Because it is. A noticeable ooh from the audience. Whoopi raises her hand again, but this time her voice is firmer than before. Okay, we're not going to keep going in circles like this. There's a pause. Megan looks at her, calm but clearly holding her ground. Then maybe we shouldn't. That line changes the energy instantly. The audience goes quiet again. Sunny's eyes widen just slightly, sensing where this might be heading. Let's just take a breath. But Megan shakes her head, not aggressively, just decisively. No, because this is exactly what I was talking about earlier. Whoopi leans forward, her tone now unmistakably serious. And what is that? Megan gestures lightly with her hand toward the table. This. The shift from listening to challenging the moment it gets uncomfortable. Joy reacts immediately. It's not about discomfort. Megan turns to her again. It is, though. Joy's voice rises slightly. No, it's about accountability. Megan cuts in not louder but firmer. Accountability for what I went through? The audience reacts again, louder, more divided now. Whoopi steps in quickly, her voice elevated just enough to regain control. All right, we're not going to talk over each other. But the tension is already spilling over. Megan exhales, longer this time. She uncrosses her arms, then rests her hands on the table, as if grounding herself. Look, I came here to have a conversation. Not to feel like I'm on trial for speaking about my own life. There's a wave of applause from parts of the audience. Joy shakes her head again. Nobody is putting you on trial. Megan looks at her directly. It feels like you are. That repetition hits harder this time. Whoopi leans back slightly, then forward again, clearly weighing how to handle this. Megan, sometimes when you come into a space where people have different perspectives, it's going to feel uncomfortable. Megan nods. Uncomfortable is fine. She pauses. But dismissive isn't. That line draws a strong reaction, applause, a few people standing slightly in their seats. Sunny tries again, her tone more urgent now. I think we're losing the nuance here, but Megan's focus stays on Whoopi now. I'm okay with being challenged. I'm not okay with being subtly told that my experience needs to be adjusted to fit a more acceptable narrative. Whoopi responds, her voice steady but firm. Nobody is asking you to adjust anything. Megan gives a small, almost incredulous smile. It feels like that's exactly what's happening. Another pause. A long one. The kind where even the audience doesn't know how to react. Joy shifts in her chair again, clearly frustrated. So what? We're just supposed to sit here and agree with everything you say? Megan's expression hardens slightly. No. You're supposed to listen. That line lands harder than anything so far. The audience erupts, loud applause, some people audibly reacting. Whoopi raises her voice over the noise. We are listening. Megan shakes her head slowly. No, you're responding. There's a difference. The applause continues for a moment longer before fading. Whoopi looks at her, her expression now more stern than it's been the entire segment. And there's also a difference between listening and accepting everything without question. Megan leans back again, this time creating a bit more distance from the table. I'm not asking for blind acceptance. She pauses, then adds quietly. I'm asking for basic respect. That shifts the room again. The energy changes from heated to heavy. Even Joy doesn't respond immediately this time. Sunny looks down briefly, then back up, clearly trying to find a way to de-escalate. I think, but Megan is already moving. It's subtle at first. She adjusts in her chair, then places her hands on the armrests, as if preparing to stand. The audience notices before the hosts fully do, a ripple of murmurs spreading through the room. Whoopi's eyes narrow slightly. Megan. Megan looks at her, calm but resolved. I don't think this is a productive conversation anymore. The audience reacts immediately, louder, more chaotic now. Joy leans forward. Oh, come on. Megan shakes her head once. No. I mean that. Sunny reaches out, slightly with her hand. Wait. But Megan is already pushing her chair back. The sound of it against the floor cuts through the studio. And just like that, the moment everyone felt building is finally here. The chair slides back, and the sound alone shifts the entire room. Megan stands up fully now, composed but clearly done. She doesn't rush, doesn't storm off dramatically. It's controlled, deliberate. That almost makes it more intense. The audience reaction is immediate. a mix of gasps, scattered applause, and confused murmurs filling the studio. Whoopi raises her hand, trying to steady the moment. Megan, hold on. Megan looks at her, calm but firm. I'm serious. I don't feel comfortable continuing this. Sunny leans forward, her voice softer, almost pleading. We can reset. We can change the direction. Megan shakes her head slightly. It's not about the direction. It's about the tone. Joy exhales audibly, leaning back in her chair. Or maybe it's about not liking the questions. That line gets a reaction, a few claps, but also some clear disapproval from the audience. Megan turns toward Joy one last time. No, it's about not liking being dismissed while answering them. A louder reaction now, more divided than before. Whoopi stands slightly from her seat, not fully, but enough to signal this has gone beyond a normal segment. Nobody dismissed you. Megan holds her gaze. It didn't feel that way. There's that word again, feel. And it hangs in the air. Whoopi pauses, then says more carefully, that wasn't the intention. Megan nods once. I understand that. But intention doesn't erase impact. The audience reacts again, softer but deeply engaged. For a second, it almost feels like things might settle. But Megan takes a small step back from the table. That movement says everything. Sunny glances at Whoopi, then back at Megan. We really would like you to stay and finish the conversation. Megan gives a polite but final smile. I think I've said what I needed to say. Joy shakes her head, half under her breath but still audible. That's one way to end it. The audience reacts to that, some agreeing, others clearly uncomfortable with the tone. Megan doesn't respond to Joy this time. Instead, she looks out toward the audience briefly, then back at the table. I appreciate being invited. I just wish it had been a real conversation. That line lands hard. A mix of applause and silence follows, not explosive but heavy. Whoopi straightens slightly, her voice returning to that controlled, hosting tone. All right, there's a pause. Megan gives a small nod, then turns and walks off stage. No dramatic exit. No waving. Just a quiet, definitive walk. The audience watches her go, some clapping, some stunned into silence. The camera would normally cut to a break right here. But instead, it stays. And now the focus shifts back to the table. There's an awkward beat. Sunny looks down for a second, then back up. Well, Joy lets out a breath. That escalated quickly. A few nervous laughs come from the audience. Whoopi doesn't smile. She looks straight ahead, then finally speaks. Live television. That gets a small reaction. Sunny tries to recover the tone. I think what just happened is actually reflective of how difficult these conversations can be. Joy nods slightly. Or how some people just don't want to hear anything that challenges them. That comment gets a mixed reaction. Some claps, some clear disagreement. Whoopi glances at Joy briefly, then back at the audience. Let's be clear, nobody here was trying to attack her. Sunny adds quickly, and I do think her perspective matters. There's a bit of tension even between the hosts now. Whoopi continues, but when you come on a show like this, you have to expect different viewpoints. The audience murmurs, some agreeing, others still reacting to Megan's exit. Joy leans forward again. And walking off. I don't know if that helps the conversation. Sunny responds carefully. Or maybe it says something about how the conversation felt to her. Another small ripple through the audience. Whoopi nods once, but doesn't fully agree or disagree. Either way, it's unfortunate we couldn't finish it. There's a pause. Then the producer's cue is almost visible in the shift of Whoopi's posture. We're going to take a quick break, she says, smoothly transitioning. We'll be right back. The audience claps, a bit uneven, still processing what they just saw. And just like that, the segment ends. But the moment doesn't. Because within minutes, clips of the exchange start spreading online. Short videos. Quotes. Reactions. Megan Fox walks off The View, begins trending almost immediately. Some people side with Megan, saying she was being talked over, questioned too aggressively, not truly heard. Others side with the hosts, arguing that tough questions are part of being on a platform like that, and walking off avoided accountability. Clips of specific moments go viral. Opportunity doesn't cancel out exploitation. I'm asking for basic respect. It feels like I'm on trial. Each line dissected, debated, reposted. Comment sections explode. Some viewers praise Megan for standing her ground, saying she handled herself calmly and refused to be pushed into a narrative she didn't agree with. Others criticize her, saying she shut down when the conversation got difficult. Even media outlets start picking it up. Headlines questioning who was in the wrong, whether the interview crossed a line, or whether this is just what real, unfiltered conversation looks like. Backstage, according to later reports, Meghan didn't cause a scene. No yelling. No confrontation. She simply went to her dressing room, spoke briefly with her team, and left the studio shortly after. No follow-up appearance. No return to the stage. The hosts, after the break, continue the show, but the energy is different. More careful. More measured. The earlier tension lingers, even as they move on to other topics. And by the end of the day, the moment has taken on a life of its own. Debates. Think pieces. Reaction videos. Everyone has an opinion. But the one thing almost everyone agrees on. It didn't feel scripted. It felt real. And those are the moments people remember. So what do you think? Was Megan Fox right to walk off? Or should she have stayed and continued the conversation? Share your opinion in the comments and subscribe to Talk Show Fallout for more real talk show stories.